all right. We in this thing back again for some extra credit. My man's decided to pull up on me. Medicine was whooping his ass.
Boy, it is flu and cold season, man. And if you ever like got the symptoms and stuff going, that Tylenol PM hit different, and we had a time change too. Woo! That extra hour and the time. Oof, bruh.
But it's all good. Thanks for pulling up. And before we get into it, we got just finished up. Thank you all for pulling up. Who pulled up before? We got up to 10 viewers at a time, which is the highest amount of people I've had watching the show at one time in the last show. But thanks for pulling up for some extra credit. But before we get back into it, make sure if you want to do a podcast like what you're watching, photo shoot, music video, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. And if you're looking for a clean, no crash, jitterless energy drink, go on dubby.com, w.com, use promo code JUKE, JUK for 20% off. And then we're trying to get some of our socials. We're trying to hit some of these milestones. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. So look up Juke Network. Make sure you go on Juke Network as well on Facebook. Once we get to 100 followers for that page, we'll be able to go live from there. So I can fully transition over. For the time being, for clips, updates, go on the He Say, She Say channel and follow and like that one as well. And follow us on Instagram, Juke Sports Show. You can follow me at KYNGRALPH on TikTok, Instagram, Twitch. I'm trying to get 50 subscribers by the end of the year, so help me out with that one as well. And add an X or add an underscore for X or Twitter. And let's jump into it. We've been calling for it. I want to say I talked about it in week 1, but I definitely was calling for it in week 2. Luke Getsy has been relieved of duties. Why did it take so long, bro?
Man, you know what's crazy about the National Football League, and in here insert rant, right? The Raiders fell for the same trap that I feel like every other organization does, right? And I feel like this what I'm about to say should be a topic within itself. I don't understand why, like, in the league, like, we just seen Anthony Richardson getting benched. We just seen, Justin Fields get benched. The league is so quick when it comes to letting go of like players, and they allow when a player makes a mistake, they're quick to bench him. But when it comes to really, really bad coaches, they get 3 or 4 opportunities to prove that they are trash.
Right.
And they allow you to, they'll mess up another quarterback, or they'll mess up another franchise's offense, and then you get to the idea like, oh my God, let me hire him, right? I don't understand. I just, this is something about the NFL that I just like, I never understand, right? Like an example of this, and I won't even go Raiders. I'll go Jets, right? The cat from the Jets that they hired, Hackett, right?
Oh, yep.
Hackett's been trash. Hackett's never been good in the National Football League. Like, he's killed young quarterback after young quarterback. Not only that, Russell Wilson, you could argue, was a Hall of Famer, right? Hall of Fame quarterback. How do you mess up a Hall of Fame career?
Right.
He probably made Russell Wilson not a Hall of Famer. Yet the Jets were like, you know what? Let me give this cat a job. And guess what? He sucked. Right? Raiders did the same thing. Like, what about Luke Getsy was attractive in the first place? Like, there was nothing about this guy's resume that was attractive. Like, what would make you hire him? Why are we shocked by the outcome of him being trash? He showed you he was trash, right? So if I'm a team in need of a young quarterback, right, which the Raiders needed a young quarterback going into the team, what would make me think the way he just developed Justin Fields, let me get this guy on my team? Doesn't make sense to me, bro. Like, it was a horrible hire to begin with. And I was a big Antonio Pierce supporter, but this is a fireable offense for hiring. Like, not only was Luke Getsy trash, but the quarterback coach was trash, right? Mm-hmm. The guy that he fired was trash. The offensive line coach had no experience coaching an NFL team as a head offensive line coach. He's been an assistant. So it's like you pick 3 really bad offensive coaches, and this is where we are, right? And it's like everything that you said that you wanted in a coach, he didn't offer, right? Like you said that you wanted to be a strong, balanced run team. He's never produced 1,000-yard running back, right? And then this is the thing about the NFL that I also don't understand, right? Like Justin Fields gets shit on for not being a great passer, right? But the offensive coordinator gets credit for being like putting him in positions to run when his running ability was just God given and natural.
Oh God.
He wasn't a top leading rusher because of Getsy. He was a top leading rusher because of himself. But
Right.
yet Getsy gets a job and Justin Fields is
Mm-hmm.
a backup. That makes no
Yep.
sense to me, right?
Yeah.
You said you wanted a guy that could pass the ball deep down the field. Getsy has never had a top 25 passing offense. Never,
Facts.
right? But yet he gets elevated as a coach to lead a team's offense and not a top 25. He's never produced top 25 offense, but now Justin Fields is a backup. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand like what goes into the hiring or the thought process when hiring some of these guys. And the sad part about Luke Getsy is him getting fired. He might actually go to the Packers in a couple of weeks, so he'll have a job in a couple of weeks, and he's proven that he's ass. He's proven that he's ass. Like
Yeah.
so, I don't understand like what's taking so long. I think the reputation of being a bad coach weighs more than being a good player. Like if you struggle as a player, you're on a short leash. But if you're a really
Yeah.
really bad coach, you're gonna get an opportunity again and again and again and again to show that you're a bad coach. And it's just something about the National Football League that I will never understand, and it just does not make sense to me. And unfortunately, our team, the Raiders and Antonio Pierce, fell for that same trap that all these other teams do. They hire really bad coaches and put them in positions to let them continue to run offenses and show that they're bad.
And
And
that's facts. I think that's funny that you brought that last point up because that was gonna be my point. Is I went and I looked up in all the articles that I read on why he was hired and how we got to this point. The one thing they kept bringing up was the past 2 years he had a number one rush offense, second, and then the second rush offense. But when you go and you look at it, when you look at context, which is something I always bring up, is me and you as offensive coordinators could have had a number one rush offense when Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, and Justin Fields are your runners. Like at the end
but
of the day, is if even if you have an average offensive line, those three can get busy.
but none of the running backs had 1,000 yards though. It was the quarterback.
Right. True.
You never had
True.
1,000-yard rusher like a running back. It was the quarterback. I can understand if all of them was getting their shit off, but it was the
Yeah.
quarterback. The running backs did nothing, like hardly anything.
True. True. Yeah. And that's the part for me is like going into it, I knew this shit wasn't gonna work. Which is why I said something in week one. We said something when it happened too. But to get to this far into the season where the season's a wash, why'd you take this long is my whole thing. And that's where you start to have those questions of is this the right choice? Because AP makes a statement, but this hire went against that statement, and it just didn't make sense. And then honestly, where we are in modern day football, the statement scares me because you gotta be. I don't care how good you can run the ball. If you can't throw it, Lamar Jackson is a perfect example of that. If you can't throw it in the playoffs, it's not gonna work unless you got some crazy ass defense, and we ain't got that.
And then and then the thing too about his coaching staff too that like scared me. Like they just hired 72-year-old North Turner
Yep.
as a consultant. You got a bunch of old niggas that just aren't. They were good back then, but it's like, how many consultants do you need?
Yeah, you
Like
had
they're
too
all
many chefs in the
old.
kitchen. Too many chefs in the kitchen.
You got too many old people telling you like what to do, and it's like, do you need that much help? Like, what are you? I don't
Yeah,
understand this coaching staff that he hired. I really just, I don't understand it. Like, you don't have no modern mind because it's like there's nobody that you could develop like the Lions were in the same position that we were in like years ago. and you
Yeah.
can elevate a Ben Johnson. You don't have like a younger Ben Johnson on the coaching staff that you can like mold and develop. All the
Yep.
guys that you have are old, like super old. And
And that was
so,
the same thing. That was the same thing I mentioned, and I thought that they needed was like they needed someone who was going to be modern football. Like I think we lost this season when Cliff Kingsbury signed with the Commanders
yeah,
instead of signing with us.
and then that's another thing too. It's I don't think the general manager and the head coach are on the same page neither, because well, I will give like Antonio Pierce's first choice was Cliff Kingsbury, but the contract details was the general manager. He refused to sign him. He refused to sign Josh Jacobs because
Yep.
Pearson wanted Josh Jacobs, refused to sign Josh Jacobs. So that's another question that you got to ask. Like, are they on the same accord? Like, like do what Antonio Pierce is asking for and Tom Telesco doing? Are they on the same accord? Because something ain't adding up, and
Right.
something a lot of it just doesn't make sense. He said that during the draft that he didn't want a band-aid for a quarterback, and then you get him a fucking ace bandage at quarterback. So it's like what is Gardner Minshew? It's a band-aid quarterback. You said you didn't want a band-aid quarterback. So
Right.
it's just like, are they on the same page? I don't think so. I don't know, man. It's
And so, speaking of same page and not making sense, so last year the Bucks were 30-13. They fired Adrian Griffin, bring in Doc, trade for Damian Lillard earlier in the year, and now they're 1-6, or it might have been 1-7 by now. Are they done for? Like, how did we get here, bro? Like,
man, it's it's crazy because again, the NBA when it comes to coaching, and I'm a stiffler on coaching. It's you basically fired Bud to hire Adrian Griffin to
mhm.
hire Doc Rivers, who Bud and Doc Rivers are the same coach, and it's like Doc Rivers has a reputation around the league for being pretty much overrated, right? And
Right,
not being a guy that if you want to go on a deep championship run, he's not the coach that you necessarily would get. And the simple fact of the matter is, it was kind of a weird hire to begin with. So it's like, what did you kind of expect, right? Like he doesn't really elevate you in any way, and like you have a superstar roster. You're missing Chris Middleton. I believe what he had double knee surgery or double ankle surgery. He has some type of double surgery. Um, So you are missing a big piece there, but you should have enough with Damian Lillard and Austin Kupo. But as we've seen in the past, Doc just doesn't elevate or bring the best out of his superstars, and he's more of a guy that throws his players under the bus
yep,
when things don't go right. So he's not a guy that I would want to bring a team together. He's a guy that brings the team closer, far away together, and you're starting to kind of see a team that just doesn't trust each other, that doesn't really like each other that much, and it's just the continuity just isn't there, and a lot of it has to do with the hiring of the guy that you did, and now like Giannis Antetokounmpo is talking about teams that he would like to get traded for. Like the Knicks were on his list, the Miami Heat is on the list, but nigga, you got to stay in the kitchen. Like the fire's burning. The fire you started this fire by
bro.
complaining about Griffin last year.
That's my biggest issue with this whole thing, bro.
You
Is
asked for this, so you got to kind of like
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't,
All of these moves are moves you co-sign.
yeah, like so it's like all these moves. You got to fix this. This is you.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? This is on you. Like, and that's the thing that like irritates me with NBA players. They lack accountability. Like, this is what you asked for. You were in a perfect situation last year. And you were like, nah, like, you gotta fix this. You can't run. Like you can't like when the going gets tough, you gotta figure out, how to fix it. Cause you guys got a winnable team, a winnable franchise, but you
yeah.
gotta figure out like if you gotta lock yourself in a room with yourself, Dame, Brooke Lopez and the coach and some of the captains and say, how do we fix this thing? And if you guys got to throw some blows to fix it, y'all got to do whatever it takes because this was you, man.
Right.
So,
And it's like ultimately when you think about it, like when you think about some of the moves that were made, like Sixers gave Paul George. Um, when you trade it for Dame, you end up sending Drew Holiday to your nemesis. Then on top of that, then the Knicks make moves, and what do? Bring in Gary Trent and Torian Prince, and it's like ultimately you knew Chris Middleton is getting older. He's more and more injury prone with every year that goes by. He's your third best player. As good as like Brook Lopez has been in his later years, you don't want him to be your third best player.
Right.
Bobby Portis, as good as is he should definitely be your fourth or fifth, sixth best player. And it's like on top of that, like you got like was it Beauchamp, Paul Connaughton, like those are just role players. It's like you don't really have a legit after Dame and Giannis because from a number standpoint, they're putting up between the two of them 60 points a game, 55 points a game, but you don't have that next person that can give you 20 on a nightly basis. And that plus the treacherous coaching that Doc Rivers is giving, I just don't understand how someone can have such cachet with his players. But then when you really like, I never really thought about it like that until I started watching Gil's Arena, and then at that point, I really started looking at his resume. And Doc Rivers, yeah, he's very overrated and gets a lot of credit from the people that coach him. But then when you really truly think about it, it's like it just don't quite match.
Nah, because it's like you look at some of the rosters he's had, right, and teams he's had. Like, there's no reason that you couldn't win with like some of these teams or these situations, and you kind of look at it like there's a reason why like you blow so many 3-1 leads. Like, there's a reason, right? Whether it's coaching, whether it's adjustments, whether it's something that you're not doing, but it's like you can't blame me. It's on these niggas, right? That's
Right,
kind of
right.
the approach that I get from him. You know what I'm saying? But it's like at a certain point, it's you because you're blowing these leads and you're doing it with different forms and versions of something that you're just not doing something right. Like I just don't understand it.
Yeah. I don't understand it. I don't get it, and I'm never gonna be. It sucks. But at the end of the day, I never want a black man to get fired. But at the end of the day, it's bigger than Nino Brown, baby. He gotta go. It's bigger than Nino Brown, baby. He gotta go because he's not representing us in a good way when it comes to black coaches in the modern day NBA. And so moving forward, I talked about it on the last show. Zadarius Smith goes to the Detroit Lions. Do you expect them? One, was this the best move that was made toward the deadline? And two, do you expect this move to put the Lions to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl?
Okay, so this was one of the best moves. I also like the Marshawn Lattimore move on the Commanders because they were desperate. They desperately needed like some secondary help because they were getting torched in the secondary, and they could actually win their division or come close to being a contender. You know, but as far as the best move, I definitely think that this move was the best move because, you know, it's already kind of been talked about the need of the Lions, you know, needing a pass rusher with Aiden Hutchinson. But not only do you get somebody in Smith that has like that's played that kind of understands the lay of the land in the NFC in that division, you know, playing with the Packers, playing with the Vikings. Now you go to the Lions. He understands that division, and his contract is pretty much, you know, is pretty manageable. So, you know, you could pair him with Aiden Hutchinson next year, but this year it's beneficial, right? You have to do something, and you know, shout out to the Lions and shout out to Aaron Glenn for being able to, you know, still generate a pretty solid pass rush even without Aiden Hutchinson. But now you got that one guy that can win on edge pressures and stuff like that, and it gives the Lions something that they really needed going forward. And you know, of the teams in the trade deadline of the contenders that needed to make a move. The Lions were the team that needed to make a move, and they did make a move. So this definitely was the best move, and I do think that it could definitely elevate the Lions into that next tier. The way that they're playing amazing right now. I still think it comes down to them or the Eagles at this point. The one thing that it comes down to me is what coach doesn't F it up, right? Because I still think that Dan Campbell makes dumb decisions at dumb times, and we're in a league that analytically you're allowing analytics to coach for you. Like we seen it last week that the Eagles should have blown out the Jaguars, but they went for it twice on fourth down for no reason, which allowed the Jaguars to come back. So it's stuff like that. There was a couple of weeks ago where the Lions caught a fake punt they didn't need a fake punt, and it gave the Vikings a momentum. So it's stuff like that. If you don't try to get too QT and you realize what you are as a team and understanding the situationships of a game, then that to me that's what it comes down to ultimately in NFC. But I think the Lions just talent wise and just and I think that I was talking to Matt this morning, and I was telling him that I think that the door of opportunity for the Lions is this year because Johnson is going to end up leaving and Aaron Glenn is going to end up leaving. So if they don't win it this year, then to me it's hard to see them winning it just because you have two really really dominant assistant head coaches. And I think with that being said, you need that, right? And you needed to make a move, and they did. So I think that puts them ahead as far as the curve of winning the Super Bowl in NFC. But it was a good move ultimately. So for sure.
Yeah. I think I agree. I agree with a lot with you, man. I think that it's frustrating because I just mentioned before, and I've been telling people all week now that the Raiders season is over. I'm a Ravens fan, and this was a move that the Ravens should have made. Like to bring up another move that happened, they traded. I believe they traded seventh round picks with the Rams, and they got Tre'Davious White as well. And just for me, I just don't feel. I feel like it's another body at the end of the day, but the way he's been playing over the last couple of years didn't really come into the league with top speed anyway. Suffers an injury, ACL injury. I believe he's had two in his career, where I just don't feel like it moves the needle where they need more of a pass rush like we talked about. Kyle Van Noy is their pass rush. Owe is super inconsistent. Matabuke has been – that boy has been witness protection ever since he got his contract. And it's just like this was a move that I would have liked to have seen them at least go for some kind of pass rush. The Chiefs bring in a pass rusher. Judon goes to the Falcons earlier in the year. Then this move happens. It's like at no point did they really address that lack of pass rush. So I would have liked to see this. But I do think that the two needle movers outside of or another needle mover is DeAndre Hopkins going to the Chiefs as well. And it paid dividends, man. It's like for years we've been talking about, because he's been talked about being in trade talks for over, I think, at least the last 3-4 years. Now seeing, and it's been rumored that they were looking at it, but now actually seeing it happen is scary because he still has that it factor. He's a vet, and he never really had that type of the way that their offense is built now. He never really had that type of over the top speed, but now he fits what they're doing now and the way that their offense is running. And where I'm mad at anybody that trades.
And real quick, to your point of DeAndre Hopkins, the Chiefs led the league in drops last year, and DeAndre Hopkins has the highest catch rate, of any wide receiver the last, couple, like probably 5-10 years, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get a guy where in Patrick Mahomes where he's been struggling with interceptions this year because he's been chucking and ducking. Like yesterday, he threw a chuck and duck and it got caught, right? So if
Yeah.
you throw anything near his vicinity, he's catching the ball and coming down with it. So he can make. You get a guy that can make contested catches. So if you're a guy too, like in Patrick Mahomes, who injured his ankle yesterday, you feel comfortable in making enough space, throwing the ball up, and throwing a contested ball to a guy that can actually catch the ball. It's not like you're throwing it to old boy Kadarius Toney or somebody like that who
Right.
can't catch the
Right.
ball,
Right.
but in Alaska, you're throwing it to a guy that actually has hands and that's a trusted you know, um, the guy's trusted hand. So it's a that to me overall was the best like move or of any team. Unfortunately, was
Right.
that, but I think the most needed move was Zadarius Smith.
Right. Right. 100%. Because I feel like as much as Marshawn Lattimore going to the Commanders is a great move, I feel like I just don't see that the Commanders being on that echelon just yet. Where I feel like the most important move, because of the magnitude in the games in which I believe the Lions are going to end up playing, NFC Championship game, even Super Bowl, what those moves mean for those respective teams, I feel like it's going to pay dividends for both of them.
Yeah,
Uh, and so with the last little bit of time we got left, the Aces lose another assistant coach to the Chicago Sky. The the first one she left and went to. She's the coach of the Valkyrie, right?
yeah, the Valkyrie, yeah, the
And so Becky Hammond hinted at the team was going to look different. How good do you expect them to be next year? Do you expect them to be worse
well, number
or
one, Tyler Tyler Marsh, the Chicago coach. He was definitely a key assistant. I don't Asia Wilson put a nice little, thing on Instagram about him. I know he did a lot for them. It's never easy when you not only start over at the front office, we talked about last week, Nikki. That's not Nikki, I'm sorry. The general manager, so we talked about her leaving last week. The lady who's responsible for constructing this team. Um, and then now you kind of start to ask, what's going to go on with Becky Hammond, because she was the lady responsible for bringing Becky Hammond in. Like, does Becky Hammond all of a sudden, come back? What does her assistant's coaching staff look like? And then you start to kind of trickle down to the players. I don't think Kelsey Plum comes back next year. I think that she goes to the Valkyrie with the other coach. And so then it's like, what does the roster look like? Like, you're always going to have a dog or a chance when you have Asia Wilson on the team. So you never want to count out a team that has Asia Wilson. They're going to have Jackie Young. The thing that I felt like, I'm a huge fan of the point guard, but she's another year older. She was coming off to the injury this year, so do they do need to get younger in the backcourt. The front court they really need work in the front court. I've never been the biggest fan of Kaya Stokes. Megan Gustafson, she's solid at what she does, but by no means should she be starting. So can they better their front court? Because there's a thing too about the WNBA, right? Teams can get good really, really fast by drafting and by drafting well and by draft picks. The one thing with the limited number of teams, every team is a potential big three, or big four. New York is going to stay together, so they're not going anywhere. I expect Chicago to get a lot better, especially with Tyler Marsh. Indiana they just hired Connecticut Suns head coach, who was the coach of the year. And again, they can continue to add, because who doesn't want to play with Caitlin Clark? So you got to start to worry about other teams getting younger and building themselves up. Let's just happen to say, the Sparks, if they happen to draft like a Paige Beckers or something, all of a sudden they have a younger big three with her. The young lady from Stanford. You got a few different a few different pieces that they got already. So it's really not only contending with other teams, but you also gotta get younger yourself, and you also gotta address who's going to be in the front office, who's going to be on Becky Hammon's coaching staff. So I don't think that I think that the it's an uphill battle for the Aces right now. It's definitely an uphill battle.
Do
Um,
they do a lottery in the W?
I don't think so. I think it's just the last team
Whoever
gets
got the last?
yeah
Okay.
from
Yeah.
what I remember. Yeah,
Because I always had it in my mind where I really just want to see Juju play for the Sparks. Um,
that would be a dope story.
yeah. But just sitting here thinking about it, it's like with Rakia Jackson, Cameron Brink coming back from her ACL injury, if they end up getting like Paige, that would be so saucy.
They got to, and that's what I'm saying. Like the thing about that I like about the WNBA compared to like the NBA, like the NBA, they don't respect draft picks. They'll trade a fucking draft pick. They'll
Yeah.
trade like they'll trade draft picks for wash niggas, bro. Like where the
Right. Right.
WNBA, right? Like they respect draft picks enough to where if you have one or two bad seasons, all of a sudden those draft picks add up, and then that's
Yeah.
how the Aces were built, right?
I was just gonna say
You
that.
get a big
That's
three, and
exactly
then
how
you
the
just
Aces were
like,
built.
yeah, you know, that's what Chicago's currently doing,
Yeah.
So it's like you're starting to kind of see, oh man, like
Right.
we got three players, and then we add a free agent that we got a big four. All of a sudden, add another free agent, we got a big five, right?
Right.
So that's the thing about the WNBA. Like bad teams can get good really, really fast.
Because that's just to think about like our run, and it started when we were back in San Antonio, but it was like Kelsey Plum. People forget Kayla McBride, Derek Hambry. Then we
Yeah,
get Asia. Then we trade. Then we get Jackie. Then we trade. I think we traded Kayla in the trade that ended up getting us Chelsea,
yeah,
or we signed her to free agency. One of the two, and it was just like at that point, now you got 3 to 5 years of being a top three in the top three draft, um, or in the top part of the draft. Now you didn't. Now you got a squad that looks like a dynasty, and so yeah, I do like that. There's certain things of like, and I talked about that too. Was who was the best women's college basketball player, and getting a Page. Man, Page is so cold. So whatever franchise she ended up going to, it's definitely going to change them for the long haul. But just for the sake of like storylines, I would love to see Juju there. But really, all the Sparks really need is someone like that. They need someone that's going to be a guard because essentially you got Brink who could play the 4 to 5, protect the rim, hit the three. Rakea Jackson I think she's a three. And so you just need someone that's like that two guard or that point guard spot that can run the offense and get everybody involved and still be able to attack. I think that she's the perfect balance of both while also having that pedigree.
yeah. No, I definitely agree, man. Like that's the thing that I kind of worry about the Aces a little bit is age compared to like the rest of these teams, right?
Mhm.
Because you're aging your, Asia's still in her like mid-20s or stuff, but I'm saying age as far as she's played so much basketball,
Yeah,
and that team together has played so much basketball. They suffered through really bad injuries and things of that nature that it's almost like you're almost in a rebuild mode a little bit, right?
right,
Where other teams are they're kind of gaining on you as far as um they already kind of got their core in place,
right.
and now they're just building through their core where the Aces might start losing a lot of their core. They've already
Yeah,
losing their coaching staff. They're already starting to lose their, general manager and stuff a little bit. So they got a lot of internal questions to answer. And then now you're starting to get to legal issues too, like with the lawsuits of Hambry and,
yeah,
money issues and stuff like that. So, like success is not always the easiest thing to maintain, so how they maintain it is the question.
yeah. I'm curious to see what happens next. I do think that some of the moves that we've highlighted over the last month they definitely should definitely look into it because when you think about it, like one of the reasons why we just don't match up well with the Liberty is not only do they have Stewie and Sabrina, but then that 4 and 5 combination of her and Jones is what can you really do? Asian can really only do so much.
Yeah.
And so you need someone that can at least match up with them a lot that you can throw alongside of her. And
Yeah.
Stokes just isn't that. One, she's not good enough. She's just not just a game changer defensively, but she also doesn't really add much on offense either.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing for me is I feel like they need to bring somebody in. If you're gonna put Asia at the 5, they need to bring in a 4 that can match or bring in a 5 that can match up. The one thing
Agreed.
though is that it's not like those are just hanging on trees.
Yep. Agreed.
And so we do got to get up out of here, y'all. Appreciate y'all for popping back in. But like I mentioned before, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Subscribe. Trying to get us to 100 subscribers at Juke Network on YouTube. Make sure you go follow Juke Network on Facebook. Like and follow as well the He Say She Say channel for now. Once we get Juke Network to 100 subscribers and 100 followers, we can swap everything over, go and have that be our only page on there. Follow us at Juke Sports Show on Instagram, and then follow me at KYNGRALPH, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, @_for X or Twitter. And we out of here, y'all.
Peace.
Drink your water.